thank the community involved in these discussions. I think that's so critical to the success of community-based design efforts. It also helps the students and ourselves as faculty understand your city a lot better than we would otherwise. So it's a critical part of this, and we all appreciate your taking the time out to share with us. We've got three groups that have obviously looked at Essex Street, the downtown area, the riverfront, as well as Anderson Street. And at this point, each of the groups has sort of identified community leaders to tell us about the progress that we made at the table. And I think all of this data, all of this information, all of these stories can begin to map out a picture that the students can flush out a little bit further and give more clarity to. But it's been a terrific effort so far, and I think there were some really interesting and in-depth conversations that came out of that. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to our representative in Essex Street.
Okay, how you all doing? I'm Jerry Lombardo. I'm the chairman of the Upper Main Alliance. And when I first sat down today, I thought for a minute I sat at the wrong table, because my interest, selfishly, I guess, is the Upper Main rehabilitation area, which is here. And I sort of said, well, now I'm mixed up in this whole Essex Street station, and tried to see, maybe I should have sat at one of the other tables. But as we started to put the tissue paper and do the overlays, it became increasingly beneficial to see what's happening here. The points that I want to make that the group found out is, number one, you have the county at the foot of the rehabilitation area. We have the county, which is right here. So we call that civic. You've got 2,500 to 3,000 people there every day, working, jurors, court-related people, people coming in for their passports, whatever is bringing them to the county, they're in this area. And so it's 2,000 to 3,000 people a day. At the same time, you have the medical center, which is right here, which has almost 7,500 people servicing this area, which is absolutely a major employer. So you have 25% of the entire employment of Hackensack taking place in these two areas. And what's right in the middle of that is the Essex Street train station, which is right here. And as we started to look at how we could improve this area, and right now, if you go down there, it's not a very inviting area. It's, I wouldn't say blighted, but it's kind of a little scary to go down there. It's not well lit. It's you would maybe in your mind anticipate that there may be some crime areas down there. So this contemplates infilling that area with, on this side of the Civic, infilling it with legal space that would service the courthouse. So you may have some lawyers that are looking for some space because they do a lot of business at the courthouse. So this zoning here would infill for that. The zoning here, which is closer to the hospital, would infill with medical space. And all of this space we want, obviously, as a businessman, I want this to be rateable. So I want to create ratables in here so that the town will expand their tax base, and we can lower the taxes for all the people living out here. These ratables will help stabilize the tax base and help lower the amount that they have to charge everybody else, because they'll be generating a lot of tax dollars down here. To do that, a couple things have to happen. You've got the train station here, so and you've got this circle. This dotted circle represents a transit-oriented district. So this is a 10-minute walk. This first circle, I think, is a 5-minute walk, and this is a 10-minute walk. So you can see the beauty of we can enhance this train station. Right now it looks like a little bus stop there with, it almost looks like a little shelter with you wouldn't even recognize it as a train station. And the parking lot that's down there presently is, you wouldn't even want to park your car there. I mean, you would, but there's several hundred, there may be 300-400 spaces. I don't know the exact count, but there's a lot of parking here. So this parking could either be improved or decked in a future development. And allowing for this zoning with the density, we want to be able to create, we have right here is a very important thing that we identified, is a piece of property which is the former Eastern Electronics company, which is vacant, and it's owned by Cinzeri Enterprises, and they're contemplating a medical building down in that area, which is perfectly tied into what the Upper Main wants, and we want to bring that hospital use down here closer and create some space here. Now, if we could add to that a residential component and maybe put, you know, a higher building, I don't know how many stories, but you want to create some more people living down here, which will create all the things that help make the area safer and so forth by having people live there. So this zone evidently is a TOD zone, and I'm not sure about, I know the zoning that's been created in the Upper Main is relaxed zoning for building multi-use and mixed-use properties. I have a feeling that may extend into these TOD areas by, I don't know by right, but I think the TOD areas are an important extension of that zoning. So which means you leave the present zoning stays exactly the way it is, but there's an overlay zone that goes on top and allows somebody, because they're close to the train station, they can build a higher building without going, you know, spending 10 years trying to get an approval. So that might, if that's true, we might be able to get a catalyst property built in here that will springboard this whole area, because we really need to tie in. I mean, the group quickly identified that there seems to be a disconnect between the hospital and the county and the downtown. I mean, we don't have many people that are leaving the hospital and coming up here and eating. They don't have the time to do that. So another thing the group identified was this Atlantic Street. This is Atlantic Street, and that corridor between Essex coming down, looping onto Main Street, and going up Atlantic back up to the hospital. A possible mode of transportation, either a jitney or some other type of service, regular service, making this small loop here to bring, if some people have time off or there's surgery going on, they have to wait 7 hours for somebody, they can come down to Main Street, eat, do what they have to do, maybe shop, and then still get back up to the hospital. Right now they can't do it because they'd have to take their car down and go through a whole litany of trying to find a parking space and so forth. So it's a natural connection if we could ever get this little mode of transportation going. And last week we had talked about a bigger mode of transportation, which would be going up Main Street to Passaic, where you have the college, and you've got another 4,000 students there, and that would connect, would go up Passaic and then come down Prospect Avenue, which would pass all the high-rises, and pick up people and take them to these train stations. And don't forget, there's a bus station in here too. Sorry. So these natural connections were something that our group identified, and enhancing this area here is a natural way to infill with ratables and at the same time connect these two properties. It's an absolute natural to do it, and it works perfectly with the rehabilitation area that's being contemplated for Main Street. So I don't know if I missed any points. We talked about increasing residential, the Atlantic Street. Oh, we also talked about this train station here. There's a possibility, just as outside the box kind of thinking, maybe that train station could be moved to Atlantic Street, because right now the train stops here, and there was some talk about that it blocks this intersection, this very busy intersection of Essex Street, many times during the day. And it's when this train is at the station here, it blocks this whole intersection for maybe 10 minutes at a time, and backs up the traffic and everything. So another possibility, and this is for you guys at NJIT to look at, maybe moving that train station over here on Atlantic, which is a more friendly corridor. And Atlantic Street, it was identified by Streetworks as one of our gateways for the downtown, which is right here. When I'm pointing to here is where the city bought, has the Cultural Arts Center. And this green around here is going to be a new park that's going to be created, and Main Street is right here. So civic things can be held outdoors at this park. You have this nice corridor to walk up Atlantic Street. If there was, I'm sorry, but if there was a new train station here, there's a couple of buildings along Railroad Avenue that are like warehouses, very easy to take down and maybe put a parking garage here that would service the train station. The hospital already has a parking garage on the other corner. And more people could take the train from, let's say, if they live in Tenafly or any place up along the Pascack Valley line, they could take the train down into Hackensack, get off the train and get right up to the hospital if they work there. So they don't have to drive in, which would make the hospital happy because they're running out of parking. So the possibility of moving that station is something that we talked about. We also talked about, just quickly, and I don't want to talk too long, but there is some flooding problems down in this area that we identified by this brown area over here. So this area, in very heavy catastrophic rains and everything, sort of floods out down in here. Some of the streets become flooded and so forth, and that really hasn't been solved yet, which is why maybe moving the train station over here is another good idea. But it's still within maybe a 5-minute walk to any new projects that are being done here. So I don't really know. That's for you guys to figure out whether. But either way, this station has to be improved, the parking and so forth for this train station. But this is definitely a node, a catalyst area for connecting these two major employers here and also connecting them into the new rehab for Main Street. So that's really, I think, did I miss anything, Roger?
I think you covered it.
Okay, so it's an interesting area. And as I said, when I first sat down, I was not as interested as I am now when I see when this gets done, this help is a major connector of dots, which is something we need to make this area work. So we get these two tied in, it's going to help this area work. Okay, thank you. Question?
Was there anyone from the Business Transit?
When it goes in, I believe. New Jersey Transit is a participant in this study, I believe, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So they're interested in the results, and I'm sure the school is going to give them, not an earful, but they're going to tell them what we found out here and what they need to do. Either way, the Anderson Street Station, which is up here, which you'll hear about, is underutilized. This one's underutilized, and this is not user-friendly at all, so they're going to have to do something about that. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Now we'll hear from
Several things. One, our orientations, the river is always spot. So just wanted to.
Harry.
Yes? Oh. Hi, Carrie McKenna, a Hackensack resident, member of the Cultural Arts Board. And also was here last week. Our orientation is the river is at the bottom of all the maps. The order I'm going to be going in is assets, liabilities, which is down here in the corner, parking, 20-year plan here. The themes that the group came up with, really, in terms of like, we went around and said, well, what, after this discussion, what do we have from it? One is that change is possible, and that a new vision is possible. That things we can go forward. But I guess somewhere it reminded me of, I guess, an old Chinese proverb, a paraphrase, which is change is a dangerous opportunity. That you can do it, but you can also screw it up. That parks, green space, and vistas that link to the river are important. The river is the theme, but you have to have parks and greenways and vistas that come down from other parts of the town to come down to the river. And again, we're focused around the bus terminal. And that to transform River Street and the bus station area into a welcoming, safe corridor. So those were like the three themes that we kind of, in looking back over our discussion. I'm going to start with the assets. And this really, a lot of this we covered last week in terms of, looking at the bus station. What we have is essentially a historic district, which is, General Force Tavern, the Green, the Dutch Reformed Church. We have a rich historical district there. You can double that with the Masonic Center, Masonic Temple, which we have up on Atlantic, somewhere up there. Main Street Business District. We have some excellent green spaces, Fashini Park. We have, if you take the circle, that quarter-mile, half-mile circle, you got 2 educational institutions. We have the county complex. So what we have is down here, where the bus station is, we have a lot of activity of various different natures. What we then looked at is, well, what are the negatives or liabilities? What are we working against? And that's the blood red map here in the corner, where what we have are either areas that, people tend to stay away from. We have the prisons and the bail bondsmen, all that area over there. We have the car dealerships, and a lot of these buildings with the hatching are either warehouses or vacant buildings or vacant lots. These are areas that are just sitting there and have been sitting there for a long time. The Bergen Record property, which I'm going to talk on a little more down there, but that is a big open space. Even though this is the other side of the river, these are the tank farms. Great view of big metal circular items. So when you start looking at, these are things that when we talk about Hackensack, people talk about, well, is it healthy? It looks like, or we have all these open properties, blank properties, empty buildings. From the bus area, this is in that half mile, quarter mile. So what you see there, are many of these are opportunities for long-term change. They are empty buildings, vacant lots, or underutilized. One of the discussions always has been parking, parking, parking. And what we did is we said, let's take an inventory of the parking that's available. And as we're doing it, there is parking. It's very restricted, but there is parking. So all of these kind of lightly shaded areas are parking areas. Some are existing. So Lot D, this is back behind Musically Yours. That area runs between State and Maine. We have the Atlantic Garage over here. And there's the Cultural Arts Center, the new Masonic Cultural Arts Center is right there. We have the parking lot, which is right across the tracks over here next to the mosque. We have the county garage. So, but one of the themes that came from all of the different spots is most of them you can't use. They all have restricted parking, monthly parkers only. You go into the Atlantic Garage and you can see 300 empty spaces, but you can't use them. So part of it is that we have parking, but it's not available. And the other issue was that we have the discussion then led to where parking garages on existing small lots could be put up. And again, without taking property away, we could use the existing spaces that have parking and turn them into multi-tier parking. And that discussion started leading into the 20-year plan. Because one of the side discussions was, parking garages are useful, but can be really, really ugly. And how do you make that not happen? And that's when we started to talk about really mixed-use parking garages, where you had the face of the parking garage being residential or commercial, and the back side of it being a parking garage. Many cities have done that. I know in Schenectady, long story why I know it's Schenectady, but Schenectady, New York, their main street is all old buildings. Directly in back of those old buildings, faces is parking garages. So there are ways that parking garages can be utilized to become part of the landscape as opposed to being a giant warehouse for cars. There's a parking. Yeah, so the pink ones here, again, just the key at the potential parking sites or places for expansion. This one here, this is the one by Ice House and Foschini Park. But again, if you look at the layout of the city, parking spaces are there. They're not available. Which led us to the 20-year plan. And I'm going to put this down for a little bit. Because one of the realities is, Walmart owns a Bergen Record property, and we had a lot of discussion about that. We had a lot of discussion last week about it too. And I think this is where the whole thing of the dangerous opportunity comes in. If they're going to build, they're going to build. You have a chance, we can block, and the discussion at the table was, well, if they're coming, how do we get our concerns out there and work with them? Because adversarial relationship is not going to get us what we want. One of the plans, and I'm taking this one down because it ties in perfectly with what was presented earlier. Walmart is here. I'm going to go back to this one first. Atlantic Street. When it's presented that it starts up here, coming down Atlantic, and you ended right around where the Cultural Arts Center is. We pick up from the Cultural Arts Center, where the park is, and again, creating a vista that goes from the Cultural Arts Center down Atlantic, where it's already is kind of a wider boulevard already, that goes all the way down to the river. And But across that property is the Walmart/record property. So part of it would be if we wanted to have that vista that goes from the hospital all the way down to the river, and again, you think about the elevation difference, it is a vista, that, you know, that's sighting. That building can be there and we still can have it. So we talked about how can a building be sited. We talked about how do you negotiate about what is Walmart a negotiable designer in terms of put the building on stilts, put parking underneath, because parking is critical for Walmart. And we have to recognize that they are a commercial entity that knows how to, as someone said, they count money by the hundredths of a cent, and look at what's the advantage at that level. So one of the discussions was this continuation of the Atlantic Street corridor, starting at the top of the hill, coming down Summit, going all the way past the Cultural Arts Center, down to the river. The river that, hopefully a welcoming area there that ties into the river walk, which over time will be a continuous entity that starts at the top end of town by Bergen Academies and goes down all the way down to the ShopRite Plaza, where it exists in discontinuous elements along that path. Some of the other things we had talked about, this was Walmart with parking below, again, citing it, but also trying to figure out ways that they could have parking and still not obstruct this vista. And this was this was the anti-Walmart drawing, which was, boy, if it wasn't there, what could that site become in terms of a mixed-use residential? So that we wanted to get that out there too, because I don't think they're going to go out of business, but maybe something will happen. So those were, we wanted to get three scenarios. Wait a second. This one, I'm going to take this down, just relocate it. Because again, the issue of vistas, that was the primary vista, but we also talked about using existing, we have the alley, and I can't remember the name of the street, but there's an alley that is used to get between Moore, River, and Main. This is by, this is a library, and it'd be nice in the long run if Foschini Park were to go up to the library and be extended. So again, getting rid, the 20-year plan we had talked about reclaiming the riverfront, essentially. Green space, mixed use, and car dealerships and those types of things. Not going to say not be around, but not be there. They do create, there is an economic benefit probably to them being in town, but that's not a great place for a car dealership. So we talked about that space opening up in a whole series of vistas. So this is the library going down to Foschini. This is, I'm screwing this one up. Okay, this is Ice House over here. Again, having movement and line of sights and green vistas. So all these red areas are essentially green vistas, and the idea of people being able to move from Main Street, from some of these other areas, down to the river. And the talk of a jitney came up. I think every table touched on that we know it didn't work as well as it was supposed to originally, but it really would be nice to have something like that again that works well, is designed well in a master plan. Any questions?
Just one remark, only because the press is here. Walmart does not own that property.
Okay.
Bergen Record has retained ownership of the property.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I didn't know that. Any questions, Jess?
You're talking about the jitney. When we had New Jersey Transit had the buses that were running continuously around the town from the Prospect down to Essex, from Essex to Maine, from Maine to Anderson, across Anderson back to Prospect. Conceptually, I thought that was a great thing because, like what you said earlier, it gave people the opportunity that live in the high-rises that necessarily didn't want to drive downtown to be able to come downtown and utilize some of our restaurants and some of our things downtown. Because what has happened in this area is now with the malls and Paramus and such, people get in the car, don't have to worry about parking, park the car, go there, and that's it. Where that bus link really, I thought, gave us a good opportunity, and I thought it was a shame that it was discontinued because I think it had such good benefit for the whole city.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, is there any way that they would maybe continue that? Because they're doing it in Bloomfield, they're doing it in Montclair and a few other communities where it has been successful. And I thought that it just wasn't given a chance here. I know there were some problems with it, but overall, I think the positive and the good outweighed the negative. And I would think that that should be something that we should try to see if it's a possibility to continue that.
Well, again, I can't speak for the city, but I think for all the plans that are being presented, that element is there. I mean, you guys just talked about the mini jitney, the one that does the inner loop, and the depth might tie into the older route that kind of hits the other ends of town, allows people to be brought down in. So I think it's going to be part of the suggestions from all the groups that some type of, I'm going to call it jitney, but some type of service that moves people without having to using cars be incorporated, and also connects those transit nodes. You have the Essex Station, Anderson, and the bus that also connects those.
One point about the jitneys is that a lot of the governmental monies, the grant monies that were out there a few years ago have dried up, but the private enterprise has filled in some of those areas. I know there's a couple fellows in the room that run private jitneys that are very interested in what's being discussed here, because it can be a for-profit situation also, maybe in conjunction with some subsidy to keep it running. So in a revamped downtown, we're definitely going to need it. So hopefully either the private world gets involved or we get enough subsidies to do it, but it's definitely been talked about in all the planning stages all the way through, so it's going to happen if I have anything to do with it.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll go to the other one.
I'd like to do is compliment whatever teacher it is at the NJIT that has taught all of these students how to use coloring pens. I am very, very impressed with the quality of coloring and mapping. So that class you have all done excellent work in. The area we looked at was Anderson. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, Jerry. Larry Eisen, I'm a resident of Hackensack and I'm on the zoning board. While the other two areas are longer term, the area we're looking at, which is Anderson Street, is absolutely hot because the station burned down and New Jersey Transit is going to be rebuilding the station. So it is essential that we think through where they're going to put the station and what is going to happen in that area as a result of the station being there.
Same station, I mean, same look?
They say it'll be the same look, whether because of the type of workmen available today, you'll ever be able to duplicate that kind of quality work. But they claim it's going to be in the same style. And let's just find where we are. This is the Anderson Street Station, current location. And if you go there today, you will see a little aluminum and glass bus shed, essentially, which has replaced what was at one time really a beautiful old traditional train station. It's a north-south route. It takes you down to Secaucus Junction or all the way down to Hoboken. What we would like to suggest is a little reworking of the area. Right now, for those who know the station, it's kind of wedged in. It's surrounded by buildings. There's really no open plaza around it. We are suggesting, since it can be put almost anywhere, that it essentially be moved across the street. This is the block where the Rite Aid and there used to be a chicken store, and I'm not sure what else is in the middle. And then the back side, there's a gas station here, but no great usages. We would like to see the station moved across the street to the other side of Anderson, allowing us to build a plaza and to build residences with retail usage down on the lower floors, and create this one big open spot, as we saw that picture, I believe it was of Rawway, where you saw that large plaza. This would give a very, very welcoming approach to the city. People come from the Fairmont area, they come down in this area to the train station. There is no parking, for those of you who know the area. This plaza could be a combination of parking and open space, and we think it would be a great improvement to the area. The impetus of that would in turn generate redevelopment along Anderson Street itself. Anderson Street, the buildings on Anderson Street are old. They are not particularly attractive. I suspect if one went inside, you'd find them in less than top-notch condition. On the other hand, Anderson Street serves a different purpose than Main Street. Most of the businesses that are along Anderson Street are service businesses. You don't go to Anderson Street to do heavy shopping. You go to Anderson Street to go to the shoemaker. You go to Anderson Street to go to other service, the cleaners, many of which people coming down, walking down to the station could drop their cleaning off, they could drop their shoes off for repair. This is a natural for service businesses that would help sustain or be sustained by the people coming in for the train station. Anderson Street needs to be redeveloped with retail on the lower floors and probably moderate priced housing on the upper floors. And I think that it is a perfect spot for redevelopment because those buildings are beyond their lifespan right now. They really need to be redeveloped, and the railway station has to be replaced, and that could really be an incentive to redo this whole area. That in turn would lead to some redevelopment along Passaic Street. Passaic Street is a mixture of housing, some very old dilapidated houses in some spots, a mishmash of some apartments, low-rise apartments, an abandoned funeral parlor, an empty lot. There's really a real hodgepodge along Passaic Street now. The one shortcoming is that Passaic Street is a very, very busy street. At many times in the day, traffic backs up. So if, in fact, we're planning any real development along Passaic Street, I think we have to consider widening the street to allow it to sustain both the through traffic and the people who would come to the buildings built here. If you widen it wide enough, you could have a bike lane maybe down all the way to the river, allow people to bike up and down, where did I lose Summit Avenue? Summit's got to be along here, and get down to the river. The end of Anderson, the end of Passaic Street, is a hub that almost hits Foschini Park. I never really realized it before. There's this one section of property which they've talked about building townhouses for many, many years, but the whole project seems stalled. But, you know, getting a bike bridge across here and allowing people to get onto the river walk or walk down here and cross, this is a dangerous intersection. I would not want to cross it on foot. But you could either build a walk bridge across or a bicycle bridge across and tie this whole thing into the river walk. This is Foschini Park, and it would make Foschini Park much more accessible. And it ties in with the Main Street development along here. Robert, have I forgotten anything?
No, I think that's it.
I think that's it. Jerry?
Larry, you're being on the zoning board, being the proximity to the Anderson Street station allows that area to be in a TOD, transit-oriented district. Would the thought of an overlay for the zoning to allow the type of mixed-use development maybe 4 or 5 story along that area?
I'm not sure that it's not allowed, because this building right here is a brand-new building going up. Actually, it looks like an expensive building.
Right.
The lower floors clearly have been designed for retail. They're all glass front stores in there, and I believe it's about 5 or 6 stories tall.
55 feet. 55 feet.
Tall.
Yeah, did
So
they
the-
need variances to get that?
They did not come for a variance. They built that as of right. So I believe in this area, you can do that kind of mixed development.
The second question is, where would we put the parking for the new station if you move the station?
Well, we want to rip down that whole lot here. You've got that Rihanna thing, you've got a gas station, you've got Dunkin' Donuts, Baskin Robbins. That whole area, if consolidated into one large lot, could provide both for parking and for an open plaza.
That makes sense.
You have part of it is already a large parking lot. In fact, don't tell the owners, but that's where I park illegally when I take the train into New York. I park in the corner and they don't notice me. But that parking lot, I have never seen more than maybe 1/4 to 1/3 full. It's a very underutilized parking lot. And if you knock down the properties beyond it, behind it, you could have a very large parking lot, plus an open plaza. It could be a combination of an attractive plaza and a parking lot for the train station. Anybody else? This, I mean, those are nice ideas. This is happening today. This is something we really have to get behind, because if we don't tell New Jersey Transit to move that station, it's going to be stuck back where it was, and we will lose the opportunity to really create a core here which could resonate through the whole area and generate more redevelopment. We don't really want to stick the station back in that little wedge of property where it's almost hidden.
Where is it now again?
It was across the street. There's a liquor store, there's a bar, and then the station was right stuck in adjacent to the railroad track and next to a bar.
Yeah.
It had no public presence, because other than the one facade of maybe 25 feet on Anderson, you couldn't see it. It was pushed back.
Does the train block Anderson?
The train, when it stops, blocks Anderson. The same problem you have down at Essex Street. I don't think there's as much traffic on Anderson. I don't think it's as disruptive to the flow of traffic. It's possible, I guess, if you move the train station right to the middle of this lot, it's conceivable the train could be cleared at either end of Passaic and Anderson, and it might be possible to position the train station in such a way that you would never have to close the streets at either end. But we got to get it out of this spot and move it into this particular piece of property. I thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. That was absolutely terrific. I have to say, I think everyone should give a round of applause to these community presenters. You all did a fantastic job. And it's not easy synthesizing all this information, these comments that have come from the community. So we really appreciate that. I also want to thank the rest of the community for coming in and sacrificing their time. So you should give yourselves a round of applause, because you did a lot of hard work here. And we're going to finish on time, right? We're good about that. Also, I have to thank the students for setting the tone for what I think was an incredibly productive conversation today. So, students. Again, thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Darius for some closing remarks.
I think everything that's been said has already been said. I just want to say 3 things. One is, I didn't check my email this morning, but Vivian Baker, who runs this program at New Jersey Transit, just couldn't get out of bed this morning. She was ill. So she's not here. So let's think of her. And if she was here, she would be very, very vocal. So you will certainly meet her. The schedule for the rest of the studio is that we have another steering committee presentation about mid-April. I don't have my schedule in front of me, but we will be incorporating some of these findings into the presentations for feedback. So please keep that on your calendars. And then we have yet to make the schedule of the presentation, but we will be presenting early May in a public venue here in Hackensack, and that'll be the final presentation of the studio. We will have a preliminary draft for you in hard copy format end of June, and we'd like to have the final draft ready by September. That's the schedule, and we are very much on schedule. The third point is that the two PowerPoint presentations that the students gave last week and this week will be on YouTube. They'll be recorded, and you can just take a look at them, or forward a link to someone. So that it's the presentations that were made. Subsequent presentations will also be put on YouTube as well, so that others can see them that can't make it to me. I want to personally thank you. Martin and I have been doing this for a long time. This is as good as it gets. We've really got great information. So I want to hand it over to the mayor for closing to send us off.
We have all our emails, I think.
Yes, we now have all your emails.
So at future events, can the people participate in emails so that the opportunity for participation?
We can do it in the council chambers. Okay.
I mean, people can come put their time in, like they would if we know.
Absolutely. I give you the mayor.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for, like they said, taking the Saturday where we could be doing our laundry and something that's so enjoyable. Doing it here in Hackensack and really getting all those ideas. I think it was a very productive session. Don't you think so? You get a lot of different ideas, things that I never would consider. But I'm waiting to see the final product. That's what has me excited. I want to see that very soon. I want to introduce Councilwoman Karen Sasso. She's been participating with this. Councilman Marlon Towns. We have two more that I couldn't be here, Michael Murphy and John Labros, but everybody is on board with this, and we hope to see the final product. So again, thank you for coming today, and I hope to see you soon. All right.